Tonight on What's Your Story, tales from the strawberry patches of the Garden State, the fishing grounds of Lanesville, Mass., and the industrial wilds of Dorchester.
What's your story?
Hi, I'm Marissa. Welcome to What's Your Story, a production from Brookline Interactive Group's production class, and it needs to go faster. People have been telling stories since the beginning of human history, long before storytelling became a buzzword, because storytelling is a powerful way of sharing knowledge and creating connection. It opens doors and builds bridges. As storyteller Catherine Wellner says, we are strangers until we hear each other's stories. And when we tell our stories, we kind of create a snapshot of ourselves in the process of becoming who we are or who we were truly meant to be. But the magic of storytelling is in the sharing and in the listening. So tonight, we invite you to listen to 3 stories from the lives of our friends and classmates. First, may I introduce Christy Thayer, who's going to tell us about picking fruit in the summer. Christy, tell me your story.
Well, when I was a kid, we used to go picking fruit in the town that I lived in the summertime. It was one of the favorite activities of mine with me and my sisters as we were growing up, and it was interactive. It was got the family together out in the fields, and we always knew that at the end of picking fruit, we could eat the fruit, and my mom would also make some great desserts with it, some pies, some other things. But it was just a wonderful summertime fun, and I don't think a lot of people here in Massachusetts or in the Boston area, people who live close to cities, necessarily get out into the fields and know that that's an activity that they can do in the summertime. So.
And you had a particular story, I think, about strawberries?
Yes. So when I was younger, we used to go out a lot, but when I moved up here to Massachusetts, I decided to go out with my sister one day into the strawberry fields, and I remember distinctly that it was around the time she was pregnant with her first child. So we were kind of attuned to children at the time, and we were in the fields, and there was a mother and a son who were picking strawberries, and I remember the mother saying to the son, "Now, Timmy, you know, when we're done with strawberry picking, what would you like me to make with the strawberries?" And so little Timmy thought about it for a second, and then the mom interjected and she said, "Would you like me to make strawberry pancakes?" And little Timmy said, "No." And so the mom said, "Well, would you like me to make strawberry shortcake?" Little Timmy said, "No." And so the mom said, "Well, if I'm not going to make strawberry pancakes and I'm not going to make strawberry shortcake, what do you want me to make?" And little Timmy said, "Strawberry daiquiris." So I thought that that was very funny, especially since he was about 3 years old.
Shudder to think what he had for lunch.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So you said that this is picking fruit like this and being out in the country is something you don't think everybody gets to do today. Can you talk a little bit about what it brought to you as a little girl?
Well, I think that when I was a little kid, you know, we did a lot of family things together in the summertime. So we all went out together as a group, and, you know, it certainly got us talking to each other and interacting. My mom, I remember, would, you know, be in the fields with us, but then she'd have to drag us out because we'd want to pick more and more berries. We knew that that meant more pies, more strawberry shortcakes after. But I think it also, for kids today, it shows them where their food comes from if you're on a farm. And a lot of people don't get to be out in the fields anymore. There's, you know, people are very busy, they live far away from farms, and we're forgetting where our food comes from. So
it's really a valuable thing to know.
Yeah. And to see how hard people work on farms and how long it takes to grow, and when you know,
how long it takes to pick.
Right, exactly.
Did your fingers ever get tired? Do you remember that? Or
No, definitely not. I think we were always again wanting to pick more and more, just to be able to eat these delicious berries. We went strawberry picking, but we also went peach picking and blueberry picking, so that was very nice too. And I think just having the fresh summer fruit picked by yourself is much tastier than what you can get at the stores. Yeah.
Now tell me about the cooking part, about your mom. What did she make?
My mom would make the best pies ever. She made, of course, everything from scratch, so nothing was out of a box. Growing up, so she made her pie crusts from scratch. She would make all the fillings from scratch. So we would cut up the strawberries and the blueberries, of course, didn't need to be cut, but we'd put them in the mixtures together, and it was a great learning experience. So,
which later led you to be a chef, which we'll have to bring you back to talk about
Yes,
another time
yes.
because we have to go to our next story. Thank you so much. That was wonderful.
You're welcome. Nice to meet you.
And now we're going to take a little break and we'll get back to our next storyteller.
Developed by the highest scientific minds, constructed of the most advanced materials, with cutting-edge weaponry built for one purpose. The PRFX 12,000 is bred for war. Search, destroy, apprehend, disarm, clean, win. What?
My name is Rocco. When the funding dried up, I got sold at auction. Now I'm a servant. It's not so bad. This is my human, Marissa. I guess there's enough damage to my... Sometimes it's hard to be a robot.
And where have you been?
And then you get all miserly.
Miserly? Miserly?
She has other humans too.
We're doing a report on Batman?
God, look, there's a lady with a said unicorn on her back.
Unicorn!
They are hard to figure out.
Be honest with me. Are you just two little people inside a giant robot costume?
So he's a bit weird. Well, weirder. I can just switch him off. Okay?
Okay.
Consider me surprised.
But somehow, we manage.
Watch Marissa and Rocco, a new show from Dogtoon Media.
Hello, hello, hello. How are you? It's working? Good.
Did you know that
Welcome back to What's Your Story, the production of the Brookline Interactive Group's production class. And I'm here with Wayne Soiney, who's going to tell us a story from his childhood.
Thank you, Marcia. About the only story maybe worth telling from my childhood is one that I actually inherited from my mother, who remembered it and told it to us many times. I've got the details, I think, in mind by now. Basically begins with my father, who went out in Lanes Cove one day fishing with a war buddy, and that often meant that you'd have a drink along the way as much as fishing. And he came back and had something to show my mother, which was wrapped in a paper towel. He gave it to her, and it was a dead fly, which he said he actually had encountered in a bottle of beer as he was drinking it. So my mother said, "We'll write the company," and she did. She found amongst her wedding gifts that she had hardly used, except I think she wrote a thank you note on the monogram stationery, thanking them for the monogram stationery. But she used the monogram stationery to write the Budweiser Beer Company and said that she put it? While entertaining on our family boat, my husband was disrupted by a insect which was found in a product that you manufacture. And she included in the envelope the paper towel with the little insect, the dead fly. So far, so good. Some 3 weeks later, a knock came at the door, and when my mother opened it, there was a large truck from the Budweiser people, and a driver came up and wanted to make sure it was the correct address, because it seemed odd that this small apartment duplex was going to receive a shipment from the Budweiser company. My mother said it was the correct address, and he gave her what amounted to a letter of apology that she could read at any time, and brought his dolly with 3 cartons of beer into the apartment. She said, just put it here. There's really nowhere to put it, but just put it here. So off he went, and then she tried to deal with these 3 cartons of beer. And she managed to figure out that in the small bedroom where my sister was sleeping in her crib, that underneath the crib there was space for a couple of the cartons of beer, so she put them in there. And then she opened up the other box and found inside there were 12 bottles of beer. She managed to find some space in our small refrigerator. I think she jammed and crammed and finally got all 12 bottles of beer into the refrigerator, managed to close it, and then she waited for my father to arrive home from work. As it happened, the next people to knock on the door were my grandparents, who were firm teetotalers and not interested even in Geritol. They walked in, and my mother normally would invite them to have some coffee in the small kitchen, but really, if she did that, they would want cream, and then she'd have to open the refrigerator door, and there was just nothing, almost nothing but beer in there. So she didn't invite them to coffee. Then normally she otherwise could entertain them by having them see my sister in the crib, and that really wasn't possible because the baby was over 2 cartons of beer. So she was kind of stuck, and pretty soon they managed to figure out that it was time to go, and they did go. And then the next person who arrived was indeed my father, who came in, and my mother asked him, would you like a cold beer? And he said, sure, you got one? Never expecting any. And my mother said, yes, check the refrigerator. So he opened it up, and as she described, for his eyes, was like Christmas morning. He's just seeing such an unusual sight. And that'll show you what can come in America if you find a dead fly. Thank you.
Find a dead fly and have the mother who knows how to get that dead fly to serve you.
A mother with monogram stationery and a way with words. That's right. Yes.
Oh, that's a great thing. So did you ever see other instances of your mother's resourcefulness?
Well, we all went to my mother. I think that's a common thing in households. Any news we have, we'd come up rushing to tell her. If we lost a tooth or whatever happened, or found my father would find a dead fly in the beer. That would be something that you want to tell my mother. She'd know how to manage it or what to do with it. Yes.
It's a great story. So did your grandparents ever know?
No.
Never?
No. Never had any idea. I'm just sure they knew there was one visit that was rather short one day.
I can only imagine what your mother must have been feeling as they were not knowing why she was not entertaining them.
Well, she played the card she was dealt. I think she probably had me sing a song or something to entertain them in the meantime.
That's a great story. So have you had your own personal fly in the beer that's turned out to be a windfall?
I can only recall betting on a lot of losers at Suffolk Downs. Thank you for asking.
when you're a wonderful storyteller. We've really enjoyed having you and talking with you, and I hope you'll come back again and tell
No
us
doubt.
another story.
Thanks
Stay
very
tuned
much.
for more of
Glad to
What's
be
Your
here.
Story.
Thank you.
Wayne.
Thank you.
We can change the world to make a world with respect. Ignite a dream, ignite your hope, ignite the world. Okay, bye guys. Ignite the world. Oh, bye. You look really sad today. What? I don't have any friends. Hey, would you like to be my friend? Sure. Okay, let's go. Hi. Hi. You want to come over to my house to play? Sure. Now there's nothing standing in our way. Hi, you want to go to my birthday party? Sure, thanks. Discovering, connecting, and creating a world. There's no limit to how far we can go. Why are you crying? Because my friends are leaving me out. Do you need a hug?
Step outside, it's a brand new day.
Holding hands.
Look around at all the changes we've made. And the
Limit to how far we can go. Are you okay? Yeah. We can change the world one Girl Scout at a time.
outside, it's a brand new day. Look around at all the changes we've made. And the world's never seen what can rise when we dream. We won't stop until it's all ablaze.
Hi, I'm Betsy Frauenthal from the Brookline Music School, Brookline's community music school. For 90 years, our incredible faculty has been serving all residents of Brookline, from babies and young children to teens and adults, with private lessons, classes, outreach concerts, and summer programs. Join us this summer for an old favorite such as Meet the Instruments, or try something new like our Fiddle Fun weekend. Find out more on our website, www.bmsmusic.org, and be sure to put music into your summer.
Hi, welcome back to What's Your Story? And we do hope you're getting involved with the great stories we're bringing you tonight. And with me is Tom White, who grew up right here in Boston and has some stories about Dorchester. Tom, welcome.
Thanks for having me here tonight. Well, Marcia, I grew up right in the middle of the greatest playground ever. At one end of my street, there was a junkyard with a junkyard dog. At the other end was the Dorchester dump. And behind my house was the railroad tracks, and the freight train came rumbling through twice a day. And when this thundering behemoth came through, all conversation would cease in the house. The neighborhood kids would put 10-penny nails on the tracks, and the train would squish them into miniature swords. Now, just beyond the railroad tracks was the Keystone Camera Factory, where my mom worked and where my brother sold newspapers. It's hard to believe now that Dorchester could have been a center of high-tech manufacturing, but Keystone Camera was the Sony of its day, building film projectors, tape recorders, and of course, cameras. Things were going, and during the summer, the noise of the cicadas would mix with the manufacturing, and it would go like this. Marsha, I want you to make a noise like a cicada. Zzz, okay? Zzz. And I'm the pressing plants. Ka-chunk, 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 ka-chunk. Now keep it up, because at the end of the 60s, the factory was sold and the place went silent. Well, so let's move on to the Dorchester dump. It was the mission of teenage boys in the 70s to build forts where we could smoke pot and talk about the Three Stooges. And the Dorchester dump was perfect for this. Plenty of land and building materials and fertile soil to grow weed. Now, if you go down there today, everything has changed. The railroad bed was pulled up, and in its place is a bike path. The junkyard is gone, now replaced with a boat launch. And the good old Dorchester dump, well, I'm sorry, but it's been paved over and it's now a soccer field.
But Tom, these things are all more beautiful, right? I mean, the park is beautiful. The bike lane is very valuable to people. The boatyard, isn't that better than what was there before?
Well, sure, things look nice, and and there's even real playgrounds for the kids. But where do you go to break bottles? Where are you going to throw a brick through a TV? Where do you go to have fun?
Why is it good for a kid to break a bottle and throw a brick through a TV?
Well, let me tell you something. There's a certain amount of physics involved with throwing a bottle up in the air. We learned that it bounces first before it breaks. Now, how would you ever know that if you didn't do it yourself?
The physics of Dorchester.
That's right.
So I was wondering if you could share with us. You said that you used to go to the dump and you'd tell stories of the Three Stooges while imbibing in some pleasant things. Could you give us a little sample of what that story might have been like?
Well, let me tell you where I thought it was just us doing these things, but a friend of mine, of my wife's, pulled up this letter, and it went something like this: "Dear Jim Dandy, we are teenage girls in Concord, and we are bored. All the boys want to do is smoke pot, build forts, and talk about the Three Stooges." So this was an epidemic across the country, I believe, not just in my neighborhood.
A regular cultural phenomenon.
Yeah.
So I can see you're saying that it was good, but do you think that there's something lost now in not having that kind of industrial hubbub to be part of?
Well, it was great fun because it was like a DIY place. You could run around, do anything you want. You could build things, you could smash things, and now everything looks kind of the same all throughout, sort of like the Harbor Walk and everything. It's flattened out. There's not much. It's not exactly designed by Frederick Law Olmsted,
And the Keystone camera. I never even heard of the Keystone camera.
Oh, so the Keystone factory was closed for almost 20 years, and in the 1980s, it was turned into senior citizen housing, and you can see it when you drive by on the expressway. My mom liked it working there so much, she decided to move in.
Oh, that's a trip.
Yeah.
So you visit her there. Does she remember it from both then and now?
Oh,
or?
yeah. She was.
Is she in her old factory line, or?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. She's. I think she's still putting covers on cameras up there right now.
So how do you think this growing up affected you, the person you are today?
Well, I'm not afraid to, like I went on a bike trip with a friend of mine, and he had never pushed his bike up the side of an expressway, or that kind. Oh, I'd never done that before. Run down the railroad tracks, or there's a lot of things that you miss out on if you're not from the other side of the tracks.
That sounds like a wonderful, wonderful childhood. I think we could all use to smash a few more bottles and learn some physics.
That's right.
So, is there anything else you'd like to tell us about Dorchester?
Well, of course, it's a wonderful place, and I hope to. I got to go down there again sometime and take more pictures. One thing we noticed when we started looking into this is people didn't take photographs like they do now. You weren't taking snappies every 5 seconds. If you wanted to use your parents' camera, they'd say, no, you can't use it. That costs too much money to use. The only place that you'd find photos, or you'd take photos, was like a birthday party or Christmas or confirmation, but you didn't just have a lot of shots of everywhere you went like you do now. So a lot of that landscape is lost because we just didn't have the photos.
And the swords.
I wish I had one
How
for
long
you.
were these penny swords?
They're only about this big.
One penny got that long?
Yeah, it's just the size of the nail, but it would get completely flattened. And I wanted to make some for you, but I think I might get in trouble with Homeland Security if they saw me putting things on the railroad tracks.
That's probably true.
Now, Marcia, you're from New Jersey. I mean.
I am, and as I'm thinking, what story do I have from my childhood? And one of the things I remember that I've never seen here in Brookline is lightning bugs. And I remember as dusk would come when you were a little kid, the lightning bugs would suddenly start appearing and flickering, and it was almost magic. And we'd catch them in jars, and you put holes in the jars, and I always let mine go at night. But I've almost never seen them here in Boston, and I'm wondering.
Oh, I haven't seen them. Nope, I haven't
And
seen
it
them in
wasn't
town.
rural,
I've
it
seen
was
them out in the woods.
Yeah, they're really beautiful. So that, and they had a certain smell when you push their wings and stuff to try to get the glow, so it would stick to your fingers.
So I went to kind of a tough summer camp, and
in Dorchester, in the garbage.
They ship us out of. We actually got shipped us out of Dorchester, and we go to the Camp Wonderland, and I guess
Revere?
Well, I'm not really sure where it was, but I'll tell you, one of the activities was they must have had a bug problem because you get extra points for collecting bugs, and then I guess this was an urban camp because one of our activities was walking through the insecticide bombs. We thought it was great.
Well, that is a wonderful story. We want to thank you tonight for joining us for What's Your Story, where we've had all kinds of bug stories, bugs of good fortune, and berries of great worth. So thank you. Come again next time. And don't forget to tell your story when somebody you meet